There we go. All right, I think we're good.
Are we now?
Yeah. We'll see what the Googles say.
We'll see what the gods have to say for us.
Exactly. All
Oh,
right,
gods of the
it's
internet.
we should be able to be live and hopefully. All right. Danielle, would you mind tweeting this out on the Weekly Pulse thing? All
Oh,
right,
gods of the
it's.
internet.
Oh yeah, we're doing great. Okay, great. Booyah! Stupid other profiles. Um, this is just the prep part where I leave the cover up for a few minutes or for a minute or two, let people show up.
Let them filter on in.
Exactly, because I don't. That's the worst is when you start the show and there were two people in and everyone's like, "Where the hell?" Damn it, cat. Okay. My phone's over there, of course.
This is the part where we wait for the show to start.
Yeah.
This is the part where we wait for stuff to fill out. This is the song that we would put in there if we had a song.
Yeah, that's the theme.
It's the theme of the waiting. The pre-show.
Yeah, I'm sure that I'll get like a million responses. Yeah, there we go. All right, retweet that. Then we don't have to fucking write anything. And I'll just go ahead and go to the thing that I use. And hello, everybody, and welcome to Elseworlds Exchange, or at least that's what we're playing with.
Oh, we have a name now. This show isn't just random thing with Joel and Sal. It actually
Yeah,
has a name now.
I've been playing with the idea of calling it just the live show, but like, I feel like that's too generic.
We can do better than the live
It's
show.
true. And
We're
we
two
did.
creative dudes.
We racked our brains over names. Joel gave me a great list. Not all of them were taken by other lesser podcasts. And I was like, how about we just combine them? We'll do what every great sitcom does and just take two ideas that you were gonna do and then just slap them together and try something out with it. So we're trying the Elseworlds Exchange. I like it because it plays with the idea of like different universes, like the universe of Cape Joel and ComicPOP coming together. It's an exchange of ideas, and the word exchange also means conversation. So
Works on a lot of levels.
yes, I like the idea of a show that works on multiple levels, or at least a name that works on multiple levels. So today's topic, if you can call it that, is webcomics. I like the idea of us just kind of grabbing like a generic like one word topic and then just kind of like going off on it, seeing where it leads us.
Back when I used to listen to League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen, which was one of my favorite podcasts back in the day, that's very much what they did too. Sadly, all those episodes are gone now to time and the internet, and I actually tried to hunt some of those down and be like, ooh, what was their topic, so I can totally wholesale steal topics.
You should just reach out to the guys who did it and be like, "Hey man, where can I get your shows?"
They've all moved on to other stuff now.
Oh yeah, but you know they got copies.
It's true.
Yeah, you know they got the MP3s
Out there somewhere.
Exactly. But yeah, today we're talking about webcomics. We talked about Star Wars and sci-fi, 90s cartoons, video stores, and now we're doing webcomics. And the reason why I thought we'd talk about webcomics is because just selfishly, I've had some experience with webcomics. I know a lot about it. Joel, however, has had zero experience, at least before when we were talking about it.
Not a heck of a lot. Like, I mean, there was like two that I read regularly.
And they weren't even the ones that everyone names when you think of that
True.
subject. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a fantastic topic because it'll be interesting to kind of jump around a bit and maybe, answer some questions about the world itself. Because the thing about it is, like, webcomics are a completely separate industry.
Totally.
It's a crazy world that I know a significant portion about because I happen to be huge fans of certain ones. And when you're fans of a podcast, it means you're fans of like a creator, because typically the webcomic is produced by a cartoonist who like operates the whole damn thing. If you're not familiar with what a webcomic is, ask your grandfather what the Sunday paper used to
The
be.
comic strips. Like, if you wondered where... That's what really hit me in my research for this, because obviously you threw out a bunch of titles for me.
Yeah.
And as I sat there reading them, I'm like, oh, this is where the comic strip sense of humor and sensibility went. I remember Garfield. I remember Family Circus.
Yeah, exactly. And ironically, they both still exist, despite the fact that they're like 2,000 years old. But the idea, the concept, or the disposable media that is comics kind of went to the web, and
as most things do.
As most things do. I mean, look at us. The idea, of course, being that like most cartoonists were inspired by the comic strips of old. I'm thinking Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes,
classic,
stuff like that. And I know that, like, for example, one cartoonist, Scott Kurtz, who does Table Titans and PvP, player versus player, has been doing this for over 10 years. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, the dude started out making a webcomic called PvP for another website. And that was kind of how they started out. Penny Arcade was a very similar deal, where, like, a website like Blues News or, you know, I guess some other website where you get, like, a bunch of news. I guess the equivalent for comics would be like Comic Book Resources or News or Bleeding Cool, where there was a webcomic that, you know, got switched out every day or every week, and it was meant to draw in readers. The most recent example I can think of is the Emerald City Comic Con's website has its own specialized webcomic called Tales from the Con, which is done by Brad Geiger, who does Evil Incorporated, and what's his name? I think Chris Giarusso, who does G-Men and does all those wacky little Marvel comics.
I've always wanted to go to the Emerald City Comic Con.
It's an amazing show.
I hear it is too. I hear that's like the place to go for writers. Like the writers are always really excited to go there. Oh yeah, apparently there's like crazy writer parties.
I'll tell you, I went. The only reason why my closest thing to the Emerald City Comic Con is going to PAX Prime, which is in the same convention center, which I loved. And if you ever get the opportunity, if you know somebody in the industry, in any regard when it comes to comics or video games, try to get, if you know anybody in the industry in any way, try to get an exhibitor pass, because you get a totally different, unique perspective of a con. Because number one, they can't kick you out. Number two, you can come and go as you please. Number three, you can get there as early as you like. And number four, you get to kind of, you're treated entirely differently. More differently than if you were like a press agent or like a fan, or if you had like a 3-day pass. Like the exhibitor pass is a completely different animal. And it's really, really cool. And actually, as such, like our friend hooked us up with some exhibitor passes for PAX Prime, and so we were like ghosts. It was amazing. But that convention center is tits. It's amazing.
I've seen footage of it. You know, people who film stuff from PAX. Yeah. You know, that's crazy.
It's like it's multiple levels, and each level is like its own convention. It's friggin' awesome. But it's not. But it's actually more cohesive than like a bazaar. You know, I'm thinking of that scene in Firefly when they went to that like orbiting space station.
Love
where
that.
Each section had its own like, you know, tables and stuff. No, it's not that. It's not that chintzy. It's quite a well-oiled machine. But webcomics were meant to be kind of like a draw. They were secondary. They were the idea was, you know, they were meant to kind of maintain an interest in the actual content.
Yeah.
And it was only after people started looking at the numbers that they went, oh, people are coming here for my comic, not for the news on this website. And so they said, well, I guess I'll break off and then go get my own revenue. See, like, you know, go westward ho, so to speak. Because like
there's gold in them thar cyber hills.
Exactly, because the idea of separating from you know, the mother of revenue, you know, they paid them, you know, like I'll pay you a monthly stipend or whatever to maintain your website, as opposed to, I guess I now have to learn how to run a business. Like I don't have to just you because if you are a cartoonist, if you do writing and art, if you create your own book or your own strip, you have to not only know how to draw and write concisely and on a deadline, but you also have to know some semblance of coding. You have to know how to make a website presentable and nice looking. You got to be able to do social media management.
Not all artists can do that.
No, they cannot. I mean, this is proved not just in the webcomics community, although there's plenty of examples of people who just cannot handle one or multiple aspects of the business, but it's evident in the comic book industry in its own way, where artists and writers are like, I gotta use the Twitters now? Damn it. No. But it's a fascinating business, and one that very few people can make into a living.
Yeah.
And so the ones that we're going to talk about are probably going to be the ones, like the very, very, very few examples of those that do make a living out of it. And I'll be honest, like there are some people who have been making a living, like Kurtz that I mentioned before, for the last 10 years. There are some who I'm still scratching my head as to how they maintain. Like, I appreciate, like, why, like, because there was a boom. It was a quiet one, but in that world,
it did seem like there was a bit there when everyone was doing a webcomic. Heck, I'm pretty sure Yahtzee Croshaw, Zero Punctuation, did a whole video on the boom and being like, hey, here's your handy dandy guide to success in the webcomic world.
Right, exactly. And I think that bubble kind of burst big time. I know that I definitely could not resist the siren call of making comics with instant feedback. We made a strip called Horseman back in the day. The idea was it was supposed to be a cartoon show, which we were developing the pitch, and while we were doing that, we were also like, I guess we could maintain like a following, create like an audience for the series that doesn't exist yet. So I teamed up with Maki Naro, who wound up doing a strip called Sufficiently Remarkable, and another strip called Science, and he drew Horseman for like I think 30 strips, and then after that, my old buddy Carrie Clements took over, and she wound up drawing it for the remainder of its run. And then we were like, okay, screw that, let's get into comic books. And then even then I was like, okay, well, you know what, like I've got this book, what should I do with it? So I turned Horseman, when it was a comic book, into a webcomic, which once again, like it's funny because webcomics are funny in as much as like you can really trace people's success from when they decided to get in.
Oh yeah.
Like Penny Arcade and PvP hit at the right time. Mm-hmm. There's another webcomic called Control-Alt-Delete, which by all rights should be a hobby for Tim Buckley, but instead is a major source of revenue. It has been since 2000. So for 15 years, this dude's been making this comic. And, all criticism aside, because there's been a lot of criticism about that creator and about his comic, he managed to create a business out of it. And
it's proof, too, you never know what's going to hit and what's going to be a big deal.
You never know what's going to hit, and I feel like it's simply that he hit the dudes on a couch phenomenon, that trope, right when there were people looking for it. Like right at 2000, just boom, it hit, and people just took off running with it. And it never really, well, it definitely slowed down, but it never really went away. So Joel, I gave you a list of webcomics to check out and see what did you see, and what were some of your standouts? What were some of your thoughts on each one?
Well, definitely, I had said that I hadn't been into webcomics. That's kind of a lie, because I had read some was it the God, I'm drawing a blank on the name now. Penny Arcade. Thank you. Well, I had read a little, because it's kind of hard not to run into Penny Arcade if you're on the game side of the internet.
I mean, even if you're a Redditor, occasionally a webcomic like Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal will just appear on the front page, and all of a sudden you read webcomics. Even if you don't necessarily opt to, or you try to, they'll find you. And usually there's some kind of webcomic for everybody, because there are literally tens of thousands of them.
It's true. And, it really says something about Penny Arcade, how they've been able to spin that in such success, really just, by latching onto, what's big at the moment. It's almost South Parkian, the way they do it, where it's like, oh, hey, people are going off about Destiny this week, and, some like it, some hate it. Let's do a 3-strip thing on Destiny.
Right. It's actually funny. It reminds me, not unlike the YouTube scene, where there are certain trends, there are certain beats you can hit, and there are flashes in the pan, and there are some that have staying power. And what the the tools are all there. That's the most fascinating thing. Like, the tools for making webcomics are all at your disposal, such that you could download a template, a WordPress template called
Yeah.
ComicPress, and literally, if you've been drawing them, you can just photocopy them or scan them in, and then upload ComicPress to your WordPress page, and within like an hour you will have a website with Google AdSense, with banner ads. Like, you could just go on to Project Wonderful, which is a like banner ad generating website, and you're just ready to go. Like, you're just literally producing like you've been doing it forever. But I think that's
some really good info you gave out right there. I should remember
I know.
that.
Yeah, if you're interested in in making webcomic, join the tens of thousands of people who are doing it. But the funny thing is, when it comes to Penny Arcade, the reason why we've heard of it, or the reason why we still read it, or the reason why we still hear about it, is because those guys were smart enough to not just make a quality product, which is really just in the eye of the beholder. You know, because people don't necessarily, whether it's good or not, it's subjective. But the guys surrounded themselves with really, really smart people, and built a business that was, kind of hinged on the success of the comic, but now has outgrown the comic to the point where Penny Arcade is a charitable organization. Penny Arcade is a #1 video game convention. Penny Arcade is...
They have a video game based on the characters
they made their own video game.
In the comic.
It didn't sell very well, but...
that was a downloadable thing, but yeah.
Yeah, but they make games, they talk about games, they create charitable foundations for them, they have conventions surrounding them. They've literally turned Penny Arcade from a webcomic to a comic about two guys on a couch into a brand.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
I mean, I could see the future of Penny Arcade becoming like awards, or some other beast. I can't even. That's the thing about like what they're doing and where they're going. I can't necessarily predict where they're going to go and what they're going to do.
Wait, it's funny. I'm looking at their site right now. I'm like, oh, what's their strip today about? And today it's them talking about Minecraft story mode, because that's a thing.
Yeah.
That just came out today, so
Exactly.
they already have like 3 pages ready to go with it.
Right. And the fact is, if you've ever seen, they have a reality show. They created a reality show about making webcomics. They have a reality show about themselves making the comic and running the business.
I haven't watched those.
Oh, it's pretty cool. Anytime you get to see the inside workings of the entertainment industry, I am fascinated. I think, honestly, like, based on just the strength of what we talk about, like how we can just pick any topic, I would love for us to talk about comedians sometime.
Oh, that's on my list, because I have a lot of great comedic influences I would love to talk about.
So do I, and while I have no aspirations to become a comedian, that universe is so fascinating to me.
I respect what they do, and I respect
the shit
the
out
history.
of comedians and the amount of self-sacrifice and pathos and insanity that they put up with / deal with on a daily basis.
What's that thing they say? Comedy is tragedy plus time. Some of the funniest comedians were super tragic people.
Oh my god, yeah. It's very self-destructive people. With webcomics, it really helps if you're not self-destructive, because you'll destroy your craft. I know one...
And Penny Arcade has had some trouble, too, in the past. They've had, some controversies and, stuff lobbed at them.
Oh, yeah. I think the Dick Wolves was the last time I remember
that was the last... That was what I was referring to.
And you know what's funny? I don't want to, necessarily, harp on that too much, but, I remember when that was a thing. I think they actually did... Yeah, I remember that comic coming out. I remember them writing about it. I remember, them talking about it. And I remember being like, so?
And but I remember in the Fallout, the dude, I can't remember if it was Gabe or Tycho.
It was Gabe. Mike Krahulik he's always the one who's like, okay, let me tell you what I think. Tycho / Jerry Holkins is very reserved and quiet, and usually is not the one to put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, you checked out Penny Arcade, which is a titan, and it's become
for good reason.
Yeah. With good reason, whether you like the strip or not, whether it's gotten better or gotten worse, they've created something.
It's funny to think it's been going on for so long now that there's generations of people who can be like, man, I remember it when it was good.
Yeah. Oh, there are I think there's 3 different levels of Penny Arcade comics that you could be like, I liked it when it was this, I really liked it when it was this, or I like it now. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating that way. But
it's kind of like the Simpsons effect, isn't it? Where it's like, man,
Yeah.
you know, I stopped watching after blank.
Yep, exactly. And there's like many different variations on that, definitely.
Heck, there's a topic right there. Just talk about the Simpsons.
I mean, I could do that, but I have liked. Here's the thing, like really quick. I have liked the Simpsons less. There are so many seasons. I think there's 25, 26 seasons.
Yeah, something like that.
I have not liked the Simpsons for so long. Like I like so few of the seasons that, like, statistically I'm not a Simpsons fan.
Really?
Like I love seasons 1 through 8 and I like season 9.
The must-watch seasons 1 through 8.
And actually, it's more like season 2 through 8. Season 1 is fine and it's great, and if you remember it, or if you care about history, like, that season's integral. It's a bedrock for what the Simpsons will eventually become. But my golden years are seasons 2 through 8, and there are 25 seasons. I can't even say that the Simpsons suck, because the fact is, like, I'm not even relevant. Like, the seasons that I like are, while they informed and built everything that Simpsons became after that, there's, like, you know, I can't even say that I used to be a fan, because statistically speaking, I only liked what?
Well, you know, it's funny, the thing, and obviously, you know, we should save this for a Simpsons show, because it sounds like we could totally do a thing on it now. It's like, you know, obviously I'm a little younger than you, which means I stuck with the show longer. And, you know, to me, it's like all the Simpsons. And, like, my breakup with the Simpsons was much more casual than it was like anything else.
I assume, yeah, you just lost interest after a while.
Like, it went from, like, you know, must-watch Sunday programming to, I'll catch that later.
Yeah.
I'll catch that much later. I'll catch it on DVD. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, all right. I think I just stopped watching the show.
It wasn't, like, a horribly destructive, like, screw this, screw everything, like it was with Family Guy. I can actually pinpoint the second I was done with Family Guy.
I'm exactly the same way. We could actually do 3 different episodes. We could do The Simpsons, we could do Family Guy, and we could do South Park.
Yeah.
Because I haven't ever quit South Park, but I definitely, when they're like, the new season's playing now, I'm like, oh, really? Still? Good. Like, I'm glad. I like that show, and I'm sure it doesn't cost much to make. I think that it's a better satire machine than SNL certainly has ever been. So,
oh, dude, there's a show that I still watch SNL. I'm probably the only 20-something you'll meet who keeps up with SNL.
Oh, no question. But yeah, so anyway, we talked about Penny Arcade. We could probably bring it back to it, but what's the next, what is another one?
Well, I guess another one there that you gave to me to read and I checked out was PvP.
Yeah.
And again, I thought that was fun. I thought it was charming. The strip I read, which again, this is kind of like a more long form strip kind of story.
Yes.
It was the dude going to his high school reunion and confronting like an old bully there, but you know the bully actually turned out to be a nice guy later on in life and apologized and everything.
Yeah. That it's funny because PvP has. It went from a gag a day, that's what they used to call it, a gag a day, a strip, where it's, you know, like, oh, Funky Winkerbin. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Funky Winkerbin was like an ongoing drama. Oh, Beetle Bailey, will you ever stop sleeping on the job? But PvP eventually turned into, like, an actual, like, office comedy, like like news, and the influences are like news radio, Night Court, Sports Night. Like, that's the kind of motif that I think Kurtz was going for with that strip. It's definitely stepped away from there. That story about Francis and the bully was like the most, like, that's like the first time that they've had a story arc in a long time.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, Kurtz has really kind of stepped away from PvP in a big bad way, but when it was started, it was originally just like a joke. It was about, like, you know, there was the guys on the couch who played video games, there's the nerdy girl who exists so that she can shake her head and go, oh boys, and then actually play video games. She could be like a wish fulfillment character. And then eventually, but like what's cool is that Kurtz, as he grew and matured, his characters did as well, and he realized, like, shortly thereafter, he's like, oh my god, like, I created a wish fulfillment character. Like, this isn't a woman, this is just an archetype for me to, like,
which is rare for creators to come around to that.
Yeah. Oh no, and And that's kind of a fascinating phenomenon about webcomics that you don't get to see necessarily in most other media, which is, except I think YouTube, and I think that's why I'm so gravitated towards it, and why it was such an easy transition to go from doing webcomics to doing YouTube videos, which is you're taking your art and you're making it quickly, you're putting it on display, and you get immediate feedback. And you're constantly looking to reinvent yourself so that you stay relevant. And like PvP was the same way. Like Kurtz needed to reinvent PvP every so often, lest it get stale. We as YouTubers, like we have to keep, coming up with something new, maintaining what makes it work, but also reinventing the wheel so that we don't become stale.
Totally. And to bring it back to like traditional comic strips, which this all kind of comes from, that's like what Doonesbury did, didn't it? Like the Doonesbury you read in the 70s is completely different from the Doonesbury you would read today, if it's still going. I think it's still going.
It is. I think it's still going. Yeah, I think it is still going, because I know that like every so often they'll do a write-up about Doonesbury and how it's cultural significance.
Yeah.
But but PvP is a much different animal from what it was, and I honestly, like, for me, like, I was a huge fan. I feel like it's definitely fallen way to something else. Like,
there's at least one joke you really like, that BB-8 joke.
Yes, that was pretty great. He also does a strip called Table Titans, which I didn't mention, but clearly he has a much higher passion for it and wants to make that more. So you've got that strip as well, which I guess is, if you're looking for like the heart and soul of Kurtz and him infusing himself into his strip, Table Titans is the way to go. PvP is more like, it went from the favorite child to like, well, it's like having a kid who, it's like having an only child. And that, or having an older child, and that older child had all this promise, and you put all this effort and time and money into them, and then they accidentally got into like a car accident, and you're like, well, you know what? Like sometimes that happens, and then like they keep doing it, and you're like, I've got to put my efforts into something else. But yeah, PvP was a fun comic, and I think that there's always potential. That's the thing about like, disposable media, is that there's always potential for it to be reinvented or for it to be something else. But this is actually, it's through webcomics that I learned that I kind of learned about commenting and fans and viewers, because fandom is interesting.
It is.
Because you'll get like people who are, some of your biggest fans hate you.
It's true. It's true. The fantagonists, I like to call them.
Yes, I love that term. The fantagonists are just people.
That's a Joel trademark. Do not steal.
Yeah, I love it. It's on the show. It's canon now. You can timestamp it. This term exists.
When they make the Elseworld Exchange wiki, that's got to be on there.
Yeah, let me tell you. Like I have a perfect and real-time example of fantagonists. When we had some technical difficulties trying to get this show up, but right before we went down, we had 2 thumbs down. We were up for 5 minutes. We had 2 thumbs down. That means that's not like people weren't like, oh, webcomics, I think I'll check this out. Oh, it's not up yet. Thumbs down. Nor did it mean like, I don't like what they're talking about. I disagree. Thumbs down. That was, oh, Sal's live. Thumbs down.
That they cared enough to follow you, to keep their eyes peeled to when you were doing a show.
They're subscribed. They watch everything we do. They're on our Twitters. They check our Facebooks just to get ammunition for every little thing you say, so they can throw it in your face. And it's like, guess what, man? You're my biggest fan.
Yeah, it's true.
You hang on my every word, and you hate it, and it makes
you go over it with a fine-tuned comb and listen and re-listen.
Yeah, I mean, like, if that kind of dedication didn't also make people murder people and bury them under your floorboards, I would actually thank them for being such great and amazing fans. But
obsession is a funny thing, you know.
It is. It really is. By the way, Jack DeWhiskey says, make this a weekly thing. We are trying to make this a weekly thing. We've named the damn thing now.
It's got a name now. It's happening. It's for real.
And by the way, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Elseworld Exchange. If you're watching this after the fact, I'm sorry that you already heard this part, but welcome to the Elseworld Exchange, the show where Joel and I chat about pop culture topics. We grab a topic and then just kind of dissect it from there.
That's right, Josh Harley. They hate us because they ain't us. Nice the interview reference. The only thing that will remain prominent about that movie.
my god, it's funny. Kurt's actually, not only does he have a very unique perspective about the comic book industry, he also used to be the fourth member of a podcast called Comic Dorks, which was a really cool show, but then they stopped doing it, and now it's nothing. Like, it was part of the Frog Pants network. I've actually been trying to, back when we first started as a YouTube channel, I'm like, oh, we got to get these guys, because these guys know their shit, and they'll love talking about it. Nope. So, fine. But Kurtz has a very unique perspective about webcomics, about comic books, about the industry, about fandom. And one of his perspectives is capitalizing off what you said about, like, they hate us because they ain't us, which is, like, there are a lot of fans of webcomics and webcomic creators, and I think this can also be translated to YouTube as well, where they're fans because they want to be you. And not like they want to be like me. They want what you have. And they
want to wear your skin.
Well, and they think that by being a fan of yours, by being your friend, that they'll be able to ape off what you did and then make it themselves.
Right.
Or use you to leapfrog to the next step of what they want. Like, it's like a half-assed networking scheme. It's a disingenuous networking scheme.
Very.
And I think
unlike all those good-hearted networking schemes, which go just fine.
I like networking. Listen, if they want to, like, for example, when we went to New York Comic Con and Valiant took us to a whiskey bar and we like ate 1,000 appetizers, no, that's proper networking. I like that networking. By the way, we are going to do something with Valiant in the future, and it's not going to be like the Valiant Hour, like where we're just gonna do nothing but Valiant. No, we have a special organic episode ready to go. That's like we're gonna shoot very soon. That will be a really great topic. Basically, I'm gonna bring back Comic Line, and it's gonna be about their company. And
that show where you wore suits.
I like that show. And we shot an episode where we did the Killing Joke, and then I deleted it.
Too much.
It was too much. We were talking about like violence against women, and I'm like, this show can never air.
Yeah, not on the internet. I've actually done that myself. I actually had a whole video planned for Cape Joel where I was going to talk about superheroes and who they would support politically. And I'm like, oh, well, obviously Green Arrow's a liberal. That's well documented. And Tony Stark, he's a conservative. That's well documented. Well, Batman can go either way depending on who's writing in the fragment. I'm like, no, this can never go up either.
No, because your fans just be like, I disagree. Like, they'll flip a crap, man. Like, no, trust me. Yeah. And the last thing I need is for our channel to blow up because because like Marguerite Bennett is mad at me for saying that like Barbara Gordon is a well-rounded character and defined by tragedy. Like, I can't let that happen.
And I didn't want to do a political video and be on like the front page of Breitbart News or some crap.
Oh my god, exactly. So all right, PvP, that's a dead topic. Next comic that you checked out.
One that I actually do keep up with, and one that I figured I would mention. It's something I know you're a fan of too. You interviewed the creator, and indeed I did as well, and that's Gale Stewart's JL8.
That's right. Yes, I was told about JL8 a couple of years ago in a shoe store, and they were like, "You'd like this. Dark Side's a gym teacher." And
that's very early on in it too.
Yeah, but that was like he told me about it like when there were like 4 strips, and it's a fun strip. If you're not familiar with JL8, it's a cute strip about the DC universe if they were 8-year-olds. It was originally called Little League.
But Little Marvel, yeah.
No, it was Little League, the baseball organization that threatened legal action, and so they changed it to JL8, which I think is a good title. I think it works out. It wasn't too on the nose, but
it's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, exactly. And he draws it, he writes it, and man, yeah, like JL8 is the kind of strip where that strip always blew my mind, and I'll tell you,
always, yeah.
It's beautifully drawn. It's really thoughtfully written, but the most mind-boggling part of JL8 is why didn't DC buy it?
I know, right? Well, it's funny because like this dude, like I think we can talk freely because we both know. Heck, he's still in my Skype contacts.
Me
actually,
too.
Yeah, the fact that it's like JL8 is so cool, and clearly DC thinks it's cool because he is just kind of skirting, copyright.
Right, because they let him do it.
where it's like you don't own any of these characters you've made into 8-year-olds and put into charming peanut style situations.
Yeah. I mean, like, there are some versions of those characters that I prefer. Like,
Yeah.
Yale's version of. And,
True.
like, well, Jesus, DC, why don't you just take that strip and then put it at DC Online? Like, go to the main the DC website, and it goes to the top of the page. And just bring in revenue. And split it with your artist. I don't understand that.
Yeah. It's weird. It's definitely weird.
Or hell, how about this? Make it a digital exclusive comic that people can buy. I mean, like, clearly the industry is aware of it. He's friends with people in the industry, and he's also he did a Nova story about Sam Alexander.
He did. I remember that one. That was a big break for him. I remember that.
And we did an interview with him on our old Dead show, Big Shots, where we talked to him about that, and we were like, so no, you did Nova. I guess this is going to be the beginning. And he was like, no. Like, no, it's not. Like, we did the one thing, and it might be because one of the people who was involved is a friend of mine, but that's it. And
yeah, I was always surprised Stuart didn't blow up huge. I kept thinking he was going to be the next big thing for a long time. I guess he's just happy and content doing what he's doing. Good on him for that.
Well, he did run into a peck of controversy.
Yeah, and there was that. And there was that thing also.
So, I mean, like, it could have been that he was getting ready. and then there was a major impediment.
Yeah,
which we don't need to get into since we know the guy, and
people can Google that if they want.
You can Google it, but don't, because if you like JL8, just enjoy it.
Yeah, and again, like some of the cool stuff about JL8, you were saying you actually like some of the characters better in that. Yeah, there's a whole great little mini arc in there about Batman being like, oh, I need to be taken more seriously by the kids in my class, so I'm going to change my costume, and he changes into the New 52 costume, and he's like, hey,
do it, and like they all get grim and gritty, like they all get New 52'd. That's an amazing story.
It is. It's so like, just at the time I was reading it was like at the height of my reading the New 52. It was great. And the best joke is the Flash who comes and is like, hey guys, can I be grim and gritty too? Oh, Alfred didn't make you a costume? That's fine. I just took my old costume and drew Thunderbolts on it. It's fine.
Right.
Because that's all Flash's New 52 costume is.
Right.
His old costume with more crap on it.
Yeah, and the fact is, like, that's a strip that DC would never have signed off on.
No,
it was just a damning indictment of the decision to make those switches, which I completely agree with. By the way, I was on board for Yale's commentary. It's funny, actually. It reminds me of the most recent issue of Superman Lois and Clark that just came out.
Oh, I didn't read that today.
It's good. But
Matt was telling me about it.
It makes me scared and upset because if anybody remembers Infinite Crisis, which is about Superman from the last universe and how, like, the world is dark and gritty,
trying to punish the world for how dark and gritty it's become,
or how he's like he's like, I don't approve of this world because it's too dark and edgy, and then we have that Superman in this universe and he's like, this is a dark and edgy universe. I'm like, no, that Superman like dealt with was killed by Doomsday and watched Wonder Woman snap Maxwell Lord's neck. Like, this Superman's been through enough gritty shit. The New 52 might be, like, dark, but it's not darker than the crap that went on at the end of the post-crisis DCU.
Right.
So please don't take us in that direction.
Another great bit that JL8 had is there's a moment in there which felt very much like an episode of Arthur where Superman and Batman go to the bookstore because Batman wants to write a book, and who's the clerk at the store working there? It's Neil Gaiman.
Yep. You know what's funny about that? Yale told us the story. He actually heard from Neil Gaiman.
Oh, wow.
After that, and Gaiman liked it, and he's like, I can't believe I got Gaiman to read my comic. I'm like, yeah, me either, dude.
That's got to be a wonderful, touching moment. I haven't kept up with it in a bit. I don't think he used any more real people in that. Yeah. I think Gaiman was the only one. Like,
Gaiman was the only one, and he didn't want it. He mentioned, like, he didn't want it to be like that jarring. Like, he didn't want to start throwing in like all these references and all these original, like all these real people, and he was actually on the fence about even including Gaiman at all. And then he was like, nah, you know what, we'll do it. Why not?
Then Batman meets the ghost of Jack Kirby.
Yeah, exactly. Or Bill Finger. Like, I created you and never got credit.
Hey, Batman, I'm your daddy. No, not your dead one.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm your
I'm
actual
also dead, but not the yeah. But I
and then
died penniless, unlike your dad.
and then have Siegel and Schuster show up and be like, they had to give us a pittance, right, for what we did when
Yeah.
when the Christopher Reeves movie came out. They didn't want us to die
Right.
and mar the whole thing. How does that make you feel, little Superman? It
Um,
does make me feel good, ghosts of dead comic
yeah,
creators.
thanks a
Yeah.
lot. I'm 8. Um, what else we got? What else is on the list here?
Just one last thing about
JLA.
JLA,
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
because I also thought it was hilarious. The parents get to become characters in the book, and I think
Yeah.
that's so awesome. Like Ma and Pa Kent are characters, and they watch the Lawrence Welk show because of course they do.
Right. You even get a Power Girl's mom, who's great. Pardon me. Ugh.
Yeah.
Live shows. But yeah, like I like that. I like the inclusion of the parents. I like that everyone's a real character and everyone has real proportions. No one's idealized or sexy or anything like that. Like it's really just respectfully done. It's clearly, you know what? There's so much care and effort. It's obviously not done by a professional.
Yeah. Well, heck, that's a joke too. They have with Power Girl, don't they? When he does a bit on the boob window.
Yep.
And they're just like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Funny. JL8 is great, everyone. If you haven't read JL8, you should all totally go read JL8.
Yes, go to jl8.tumblr.com, I think. If not, by the way, check in the description box down below. We'll send a link to every comic we reference in this episode.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
From a totally sweet and wholesome comic to another comic I regularly read, and this is going to be really weird, but it's a webcomic called Oh Joy Sex Toy.
Yes. That's Erica Moen.
Erica Moen, yep, beautiful artist and definitely beloved by comic creators, because if you see who follows her on Twitter, it's a bunch of big name comic people who like her work.
Oh yeah, and she's one of those people who was a like an already established webcomic creator, already had a career, and also wound up being a contestant on Penny Arcade's reality show.
Oh wow!
Which everyone was kind of like, what the hell? Like all these other people are starving, and you got Erica Moen. What the crap? But Moen kind of was like, I'm gonna forego any fee that any prize money I get. I just want.
Oh,
to be
that's
part of
nice.
It was cool. She's a classy person. I've met her
She
twice.
sure is.
And
Lucky you.
Yeah, she's super cool, super nice. I didn't start my sketchbook until after that, of course. But yeah, Oh Joy Sex Toy. Tell the good people what that's all about.
Well, I sure will, everyone. And you can tell that we can do this on the ComicPOP channel, because we could never do this on any of the other channels. Well, actually, no, we could totally do it on Comic Book Cast. We do shit like that all the time. But yeah, Oh Joy Sex Toy, it literally started as hey, let's actually review real life, honest, real world sex toys. And we'll have comics to go with them, funny little imagery and everything.
Yeah.
And from that, it's expanded to, because it's Erica Moen and I guess her husband, partner, whatever, he's part of it too.
Yes, she's her husband. Yeah, he's her husband, because the idea was Erica Moen had always identified as being gay.
Mm-hmm.
And then she met this guy and fell in love with him.
Mm.
And it completely transformed her perceptions of sexuality.
Yeah.
And she actually wound up doing a webcomic before that, before Oh Joy Sex Toy, that chronicled her kind of transformation.
Oh, I gotta track that down.
Oh, it's great. It's called DAR, D-A-R exclamation point, and it goes. I think it's about a 6-year window of her just being an artist and going through hell, and not
cool.
Just the hell that is life, the hell that is your 20s, and her meeting this dude and falling in love with him, and how that radically annihilated her life, just completely changed her perceptions, her friendships, her relationships, everything. And
level fuck you up, kids, just so you know.
It's actually, it's funny, it kind of reminded me of a more tastefully done Chasing Amy. Because I like Chasing Amy. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think it's beautifully put together, but they never address, because Smith doesn't really at that point understand, they don't address the whole she thought she was gay and then falls in love with a man, and it's no, don't get caught up on labels and sexuality.
Which is all very much topics that Oh Joy deals with, where it's very much about gender and life and roles and all this other stuff, and they get great guest artists who do little one shots and
That's
everything.
right.
And it's just like, man, this is really cool, really progressive stuff, and I dig it.
That's the thing. It's very liberal. If you're not like sexually liberated or liberal, like this is not gonna be a comic
No.
that you're gonna want to read.
And it's not safe for work is the other thing. It is
Very
a very
NSFW.
unsafe for work.
But I will say, you know what the fact is, like, even if it's not necessarily for you, I challenge you to read it, or at least read Dar, because one should always be exposed to essential questions. And this is the problem that I always encounter with people that, like, I've known through walks of life, where, like, I'm like, man, there they go. And were it not for the fact that they're afraid of life, or they're afraid to ask themselves really simple but really penetrative questions, just literally just like, I don't want to think about it or ask myself that question, and so I'm just gonna bury my head in the sand
because I might not like the answer.
or I'm afraid of what the answer might mean for my convenience. And and this is, while I'm talking about transformative journeys, Oh Joy Sex Toy is just like, think about it for a second, and if nothing else, you get to see some boobs.
And it's funny too, like it's a very,
to think of it that way.
and it's a very funny strip too. Like there's like laugh out loud stuff that they did a whole little strip on them going to a swinging party, because it's more than just toys. They like they interview an exotic dancer, and she talks about like all the athleticism that goes into that.
Yeah.
The swinging party one made me laugh too, because like, well, we had the worst time ever even just getting there, and that's like, it's like, this isn't sexy, this isn't enjoyable at all.
That's the thing. Like it kind of takes the mystique out of
totally
the big umbrella of sex, and turns it into something real. Something that, like, something more frank, which I think is amazing, and also turns it into art, which is the best kind of anything in life.
And also something goofy and something fun too. It's a very colorful comic. Yeah. It's got, like, a lot going on.
Yeah, no, Erica Moen's a smart person, and she produces really, like, penetratingly insightful art. So,
yeah.
I'm glad we brought that up, because it's something that's, like, totally not in the wheelhouse of everything we're talking about.
Hey, games, comedy, superheroes, but no, seriously, transformative questions,
about
gender
sexuality
fluidity and other stuff. Which, again, goes to show, like, there's a comic that probably would never be printed, but it's something that can find an audience as a webcomic.
Yeah,
and really thrive as a webcomic.
That's the thing about a lot of independent work, is that, like, there are some comics that no publisher will take a chance on you. And I have been to enough conventions and been on in the internet, like, with respect to comics, long enough, to understand that, or to know that there are like 1,000 independent comic book publishing houses that make one book.
Yep.
Like, that, just like, I needed to make my book, and I didn't have any other avenue, so I made my own publishing company.
Heck, our friend Comic Uno went through something like that just recently when she put out her book, Like Father, Like Daughter, that she's going through right now.
Yeah, which I believe she's doing a Kickstarter for the next issue.
She is. Definitely check that out. Tell her Sal and Joel sent you.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we even did it ourselves with back when we were called Little House Comics. Now, when we produce books, it's called ComicPOP Studios. But webcomics are a way for you to literally just try art and tell your story with literal no impediment, and and the only obstacles are your own. Like, they might be financial, they might be artistic, they might be criticism, but the fact is there's nothing to stop you from making art and then putting it out there. It is like, for me, webcomics are special because they represent the best qualities of what the internet should be, which is making anything. Or something that is your unique voice.
Expressing creativity as something personal.
And just being like, there it is. And it's up for grabs. I'm not shoving it down your throat. I'm not, like, forcing you to read it. And there's no way for me to do that, because the internet is just a place for these people who are like, meh. Like, you can just click it off and it goes away. But if if you're looking for something, or if you stumble upon it, you might just find something, special. And that's the magic of the internet and the magic of webcomics for me.
It's true. It really is.
Yeah. What else we got? What else we talking about?
I don't know. What are some other books that you
There's another
really like?
comic that I recall called whoops, called Questionable Content, which is a comic strip that my an old friend of mine used to read that I loathed.
Oh yeah.
I hated it so much because it was poorly drawn. In my perspective, it was poorly drawn. It was full of Mary Sue's, and it's
Explain what a Mary Sue is for
good
people
question.
out there who don't know it.
Oh shit. Okay. Just a second. There we go. And there we go. All right. A Mary Sue is a character who has
No
no
faults.
conflict, no faults. They have cheat codes on,
They
and
are
they're
perfect. They are Teflon, and more often than not, they are writer insert characters. I think the term comes from the fan fiction community, doesn't it?
it does.
Mary
It does.
Sue?
I mean, like the fact is, and they don't have to necessarily be the prettiest or the smartest, but everyone has to care about them, and they have to win all the time, and that's
They are the Poochies. They are when this character is not around, we need to be asking, where's Poochie?
yeah, they're the Bellas of the world.
A perfect example of a Mary Sue character. Now, this isn't just women characters,
Oh,
too.
no.
The male version is a Gary Stew, which I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. If you ever want to know a perfect textbook example using a Star Wars metaphor, read the book I, Jedi. It is a fan fiction book about a character who is a great pilot because Han Solo says he is. He's a great Jedi because Luke Skywalker says he is. And he beats the bad guy and finds out he's Force sensitive and, like, he can do everything. And people were like, this is fucking amazing. And it's like, no. If you want to be that guy, then sure. But that's it. But yeah, Questionable Content was a strip where my buddy read the crap out of it. And I was always like, what is this comic? And I read it, like, just to understand my friend a little better, I read it from beginning to end. And it didn't end, it's still going on. But it is a comic about hipster douchebags in the northeast corner of the United States.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, there's also robots.
Okay. When webcomics came on the scene and became, like, in vogue, when people were like, I could do that, there's like almost a formula that you could follow if you want to make a truly depressingly obvious webcomic. And the formula is such that you have a couple of guys, a couch, a girl, and a quirky character you can turn into a toy, sticker, like, or any
Or a catchphrase machine.
and and they also have to have some stupid, catchphrase or like Haganaga, like they have to say something that you can put on a t-shirt.
Wubba-lubba-dub-dub. Which I think is a beautiful catchphrase for Rick and Morty because it's so making fun of ridiculous catchphrases.
Yeah, and it means that what it actually means is also great because then it undercuts what the jubilance of saying it.
In bird language, wubba dubba lub lub means someone who is hurting on the inside.
I am hurting. Please help me.
In bird culture.
Yeah. It is random debris. I don't know what humans.
I don't know what you know what this human eats. Tammy, don't be gross.
Tammy, gross. Crap. Yeah. So.
Webcomics.
So in Questionable Content, there's a character named Pint Size, and he is a little robot who's just sexually perverse and hilarious because he doesn't give a fuck, and he's just so cute and funny, and he's can't be stopped and whatever. It's just like so fucking on the nose and obvious. It made me sick. Like, because
so he's the Scrappy Doo, to use another dog metaphor.
Scrappy Doo. If Hanna-Barbera wasn't afraid of sexual jokes, because like it's like if Scrappy Doo humped Velma and Daphne's leg all the time,
which he almost kind of did in the live action.
In the movie, yeah. I mean, he was humping people, he was peeing on them, and
from the writer of Guardians of the Galaxy.
When I saw that scene, like in the Scooby movie, because that movie looked like such garbage, and Scooby looked so stupid with that awful CG. when they're in the when they reveal that they broke up mostly because of Scrappy, and they show that
Yeah.
scene of him like, okay, it's me. I was like, oh, this is really cool.
I'm gonna give him puppy. Well, it's funny, you hear about like what they wanted to do with that movie before they decided it was going to be a kids movie. Like it was actually going to be more adult oriented, and they were going to be able to say, yeah, Scooby and Shaggy are just stoners, and yes, Velma is gay.
Right. I'm happy with either one, honestly.
Yeah.
I always like seeing art, kind of put into a box, because that's when you like, when you see true creativity trying to get out of it or work around it. But anyway, questionable content is drama. It's melodrama. It's a comic about 20 to 30-year-olds who do whatever they want and never really run into conflict, and when they do, they talk their way out of it.
I already hate it.
Here is an example of the conflict that takes place in a questionable content story arc. Miscommunication, revelation the miscommunication took place, forgiveness.
So hacky sitcom writing.
It's not even like, sitcom writing, you could milk a season out of one misunderstanding.
Yeah, and they often do.
Yeah, but what questionable content does is, anytime those characters are like in any awkward situation or an uncomfortable position, the creator will immediately take them out of it. Like he's like, no, I can't let them. I don't want anyone to be mad at them. I don't know what the point is except to generate money. And it's
money is nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who doesn't like money? I actually, I was so angry at one point at questionable content. I developed an entire webcomic series that is just an angry parody of questionable content. I was like, well, we gotta name it. It's because, of course, you gotta come up with the name first, because that's how you kill creativity. And so we came up with a name that was just so generic and obnoxious, and it fit on a bumper sticker and was a perfect. And then, and what are the characters and blah 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 blah. And just within a half hour, we had 20 strips written, and I'm like, all right, throw this away.
Yeah, spite can be good sometimes, and it's good to fuel the creative process, but maybe you shouldn't do it.
Oh, let me tell you something. I wrote. This is too fanfiction-y, but like we in college we were in we got into a like a Mobius strip of a conversation about why the new prequels are bad. And I was like,
sounds like my kind of thing.
And I was like, they're so bad, if you gave me a week, I could write a better script. And then they're like, go for it. So I wrote this script for like an alternate Phantom Menace. And I'm like, here you go. And they're like, you were right, this is better than what we got. And I'm like, great, delete it, because I don't want to ever submit this anywhere.
Look back at this at any time.
I don't want to ever be like, yeah, I wrote an alternate script for Star Wars.
At my spite-fueled Phantom Menace alternate take, which is hilarious because that guy has that show now. If I wrote it or if I did it differently, which is actually just him sitting down in front of a camera telling how he'd do it differently, and it's actually got pretty big.
Yeah. We almost have a show like that on this channel. We'll talk about it in the future. So yeah, I guess we can wrap up from here, because like, unless there's any other like honorable mentions you want to throw out there.
That's just about it. Like, honestly, this is one of the few shows I've had to actually do some research.
I know.
for.
I'm sorry I had to make you do stuff, but like,
that's
okay.
Like,
hopefully I broadened your horizons a little bit.
You did, and obviously I hope some of the people out there, I hope they heard of some good ones that they're going to want to check out.
Absolutely.
And obviously, I'm sure in the comment section they're going to talk about ones they like. Like some people mentioned VG Cats, which I know of VG Cats, because of course I know the Assassin's Creed one where they're screwing around with the wrist gauntlet and then he hits himself in the face.
Yes, I know the creator of VG Cats. We're in a VG Cat from like back when we were in college.
No.
Yeah. We did a comic for Horseman, and and he loved it so much. He's like, okay, we're gonna put you in there.
Nice.
But VG Cats. There's another one that just ended about a year ago that I need to mention, called Girls with Slingshots, which is made by a cartoonist named Danielle Corsetto. And she's an incredible artist. She's really insightful and thought-provoking, and her comic strip is just about two girls making their way in the world, and it's really, really cool. I would definitely recommend checking it out. The whole damn archive is out, and actually right now she's recoloring all the strips, like all 10 years worth of, or 13 years worth of that comic. So, like, if you jump on board, you're getting just newly colored versions of what came already.
I'm looking at it right now, and it does look really nice. It is, again, that classic comic strip kind of style.
Oh, it's a webcomic formula. It's two girls on a couch, and they have a talking cactus.
No.
And you're like, okay. But once you get through that, it doesn't... Like, it's about this... For me, it's funny, because it was also really frustrating, because the main character, Hazel, is so incredibly self-destructive and selfish. And it's fascinating to read a story in any way about someone who is who wants to do good but is incredibly self-destructive and like insular.
Those are some of my favorite stories, actually, about the self-destructive hero.
Yeah, she doesn't like raise her life, but she does. But she never gets quite what she wants, and it's all her own fault. Like, it's all throughout her own designs. Which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And Corsetto is just a great, also a great person and a really terrific artist. She used to do a strip for the National Enquirer about that boy.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. That I would recommend. Perry Bible Fellowship is another comic that is unbelievable. It is transcendentally hilarious.
I did read a little of that, yes.
And it's because each comic is completely, it's like they just throw it all away and start over. It's like The Far Side if Gary Larson were like a lunatic.
So that nice bit of like cartoonish anarchy.
Yes. Similarly, I would also recommend what was the other one? Oh, I also like Chainsaw Suit. Chainsaw Suit.
I read a little of that too when you recommended it.
It's disposable media. It's very funny. It's funnier when the creator Chris Straub is angry,
as is often the case with comedy.
Yep. The one that I always remember that's always funny to me is because he always draws. Everyone is drawn as like a little more elaborate stick figure.
Yeah.
And there's one where it's like the character. There's a stand-up comedian, and he says, white people eat like this, nom nom nom, and black people eat like this, nom nom nom. And the last panel is just him sitting on a pile of money. And it's just so angry, and I thought that was so funny, and I was hooked from then on out. But yeah, Chainsaw Suit. Chris Straub does another comic called Brood Hollow that he's very, very proud of. I don't know if I'm hooked yet, but he's been doing it for a few years, so maybe one day I will be. He also, by the way, Chainsaw Suit has a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
That only has 6,000 subscribers. They make really good stuff. I've been trying to do collaborations with them for the last couple of years, but so far have not been able to make anything catch. But hopefully through the strength of this show and through our audience, maybe we can get something going.
You'll get the Elseworld Exchange bump. It'll be like the Colbert bump.
I would love to have an Elseworld Exchange bump. Let me tell you, man, they do a show called Movies with Mikey, and it's spectacular. It's
I gotta check that out now.
show. Definitely watch it. If you guys haven't seen it, watch the newest episode of Movies with Mikey and give it a bump and tell them that we sent you there. It's because we want to do stuff with those guys, and I don't know what else to do about it.
Those fine, upstanding gentlemen, Joel and Sal of the newly named Elseworld Exchange.
Yeah, tell them ComicPOP sent you, please, because damn. But yeah, webcomics, man. I feel like there are many parallels you can draw between the world of webcomicking and the world of YouTubing. Yeah. And it just so happens that because we both, spout daily about comic books and comics in general, that I feel like it was a particularly relevant subject, and I think
it is.
I don't think we've quite seen the last of this subject, because I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, because I know the people in our comments are going to come up with 1,000 more suggestions.
100 ones. And that's the beautiful thing about webcomics. Everyone is someone's favorite, and because there's so many different people out there's something that speaks to them that might not speak to everyone else, and there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, that's what's so spectacular, is that with the Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin Hobbes, once was asked about webcomics, and he suggested that he's sure, like, I'm paraphrasing, but his quote was basically, I'm sure there are a few greats, but thanks to the internet, they're probably lost in a sea of mediocrity. And while you could look at that cynically and say that, another alternative might be that there is literally a Garfield for every like demographic you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
It's like when we were talking about how like advertising is dead. Like
Yeah.
advertising's dead because there is no cultural unifier when you have the internet. Because you could live in a complete cultural vacuum and never know anything about anything.
A lot of people do, in fact.
It's true, and you like, so if you see a billboard or a TV commercial, who the hell is that for? Because everyone has been splintered off into 1,000 different like critical interests and factions. So there's no real way to traditionally market anything, and as such, like. There is a way for people to succeed in creating mass media or specific media for those splinters.
Oh yeah, and talking to you about Watterson's comment about webcomics, that's still way nicer than people like Howard Stern say about podcasting. Basically, about what we're doing right now.
Oh yeah, well Howard Stern has no idea, and the fact is, if he was born in 1997.
Today.
He would have a very unpopular podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say him and Robin would be the biggest podcasters on the internet. You know,
I think he'd be too late. I think he would like, yeah, maybe. I mean, like the fact is, there's nothing edgy about that man in today's world.
It's true.
Like, what does he bring to the table but experience? So
great experience.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I don't discount the contributions of the Stern Show, but like, you know, don't just dismiss new media out of hand because you don't
you're old.
It. Yeah. Yeah, you're betraying your age, and I don't mean like to have a midlife crisis and be like, oh no, I'm into those YouTubes. Who doesn't love the PewDiePies?
Yeah,
and
really.
And my balding ponytail and my vet. So yeah. Well, there you go, everybody. This was our conversation about webcomics. We did not get into Korean webcomics, Aztec Gold. We're North Americans, and as such, we kind of...
Link us to some good Korean webcomics.
Let us know.
There's a whole world there we don't know of Korean webcomics.
Yeah. Also, Danielle mentioned The Last Halloween, which is a spectacular comic made by Abby, and there's a book called Skull Kickers, which I think was made by Zeb Wells.
Yes, I do know.
Crap, who did Skull Kickers?
It's someone we know.
Yeah, it's Wayward. It's the guy who did Jim Zub.
Jim Zub, yeah.
Yes.
Good old Jim Zub.
Yeah. So definitely, let us know in the comment section down below. What's your favorite webcomic and why? And we'd love to talk about it and continue the conversation in the chat.
Of course.
In addition to that, of course, if you want to check out a webcomic that I did, you could go to flightofthebinturong.com because it's still going. It just ended. So you can read the whole thing, all 89 pages, right now. And
this was the impetus for doing this show, right? So you could have a reason.
Strip. No, the strip ended, so I don't have to pimp that at all. I am trying to get it picked up though, so we'll see what happens.
There you go.
But yeah, thank you, Joel, for doing some background checks on this subject and joining in the conversation. I think this went well. I think this was a fun show.
I thought it was a fun show too. Always happy to learn. Always happy to do new stuff. This is definitely me venturing into unfamiliar waters, which is fun.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And hopefully some of the people in the comments and in the chat will also venture into uncharted waters and find something really new and exciting.
Yeah, check out some of the books we told you about.
Yeah, and what? Let's see. We have a whole list of new topics that are coming up for next week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what we're gonna do yet, but Joel and I will decide that off camera, and we'll.
But we'll throw a dart at a board and figure it out.
Exactly, because it really is just like, this is, by the way, if you're ever interested in the process of how we pick books for back issues, it's very similar, where I'm like, they're like, the guys show up and I'm like, oh, hey guys, like, what are we doing? I'm like, this!
Really, I assumed you had a list and a process and everything.
I have a list. It's just... Well, sometimes I don't feel like talking about it. Like, I'll be like, we're doing this book, and then I'll be like, ugh.
I assumed you just put a blindfold on and they spun you around a bunch of times and then you just picked one out at random.
Yeah, no. No, it's more like, I think I have an idea in my head for like a week, and then I either do it or completely change it. But yeah, hey, if you want to just find some more great YouTube comment, you could always subscribe to Kate Joel, which is located in the description box below this video as well.
Please do.
And if you want to make this machine of ours run a little smoother, help get some lubricant on those gears, you can go to patreon.com/ComicPOP and help us make this whole operation a whole lot better. We've already increased a lot of our equipment as a result of the Patreon, and of course through ad revenue as well, and hopefully we can only make things better and brighter from here. The next step, I'm hoping, is to get studio space and pay people.
Yeah, you should make a stretch goal, the pay Joel stretch goal for his time every week is what you should do. Because Joel needs another paycheck from another comic YouTube.
It's true. I cannot afford that, but we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week on the Elseworlds exchange.
We have a name now.
Yeah. Later.